When a culture is operating a certain way and it violates your conscience, you should pay attention to that. You'll be in danger of is becoming a part of groupthink. Since everyone else accepts it, you start accepting it. So I think it's really important to ask the why of the how.
In a state of the world where it feels like working hard is maybe seen as deemed as capitalistic and evil, how do you navigate that kind of culture?
I think it's very simple. If you have a job you hate, figure out how to work 4 days. And so when you do things you love, the time becomes more incidental.
Good morning. You are listening to Mind Shift with Aaron McManus and Erwin McManus. I'm here in Los Angeles. My dad is in an undisclosed location in Central America. How you doing, Dad?
I'm doing good. I'm actually here in Costa Rica. Let me tell you, it has been an adventure to try to figure out where I could actually have enough Wi-Fi to do the Mind Shift podcast. So I'm snuggled here in a little corner of a hotel room that's like a box. And it's good to be with you. But saying I'm in Costa Rica is not a true reflection of my experience. I'm not on the beaches. I'm not in the beautiful rainforest. I'm sitting in a little industrial hotel and getting ready for some surgery.
Okay. Well, we'll definitely be praying for you for the surgery and recovery. I know that it's been a process the last few months, and you've been an incredible trooper through it all. So here we are on Tuesday, April 2nd, getting ready for this week's podcast, and we have an arena call right after this, and I'm wearing a sample arena hat that is unreleased.
I was wondering where you got that. How is it possible that you have merch that I do not have?
I made you one, but look, the logo is like way too big on the side, and they like did that janky. So it's the first iteration, and this is too small. So I honestly I got them and was like kind of too embarrassed to give you the other one because it was even worse. It was worse. I was like, oh, but I'll wear it because this is kind of close. You know, the front's close, but we're working on it. I'm very excited. We're working on our conference, October 10th, 11th, 12th in the arena. It's in Los Angeles. It's our live. The arena live in Los Angeles. It's a conference. We have 15 of some of the world's best speakers. Donald Miller, Brendan Bouchard. We have President Nayib Bukele from El Salvador, who's a hometown hero for us, and also a leading mind in world socioeconomics and politics. First country to utilize Bitcoin as a form of currency. So we're very, very, very excited for that. So you can register for that in the link. But you were listening to Mind Shift. And Dad, good morning. It's good to see you, man. I know that we're far away, but I'm glad we made this happen.
Oh, I am so glad to make this happen. And I got to tell you, I don't know if I should tell you, but it's a funny story from yesterday.
Okay. You don't know.
And
what do you mean you don't know?
I like walking. I love walking, as you know. And I had a taxi drive me up to the top of a hill. And then I walked back, but I ended up in the middle of a favela.
Okay.
And I was stuck in there for like 3 hours. I could not find my way out. If you've ever been in a favela, there's a lot of dead ends. There's a lot of alleyways. It's almost like there's one way in and no way out. And I'm going steep hills down and steep hills up, and it was insane. And no Wi-Fi, no maps. I couldn't pin anything to figure out how to get out. You can't call anyone. There's no Uber. There's no taxis. You're just basically on your own. So 13 miles later, and I find my way out by asking people, and they're like, oh no, you can't get out this way. No.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Were you asking people in English or in Spanish?
Oh no one spoke English.
No,
if you did not speak Spanish, you would never get out.
Sometimes you forget that you speak Spanish, and I have to remind you, like, Dad, you speak Spanish. Say hi. I'll say hi in Spanish. So you say hi in Spanish. We immediately make friends when you say hi in Spanish. And then sometimes you'll just be in these countries and you won't speak a word of Spanish, and I have to remind you where you came from.
And it's funny, I did actually have those moments where I remind myself, like I'm walking through crowds and I'm walking through, little, corners, and I tell myself, walk through this crowd, walk through this group of guys, big. Like, just don't look like you're an easy mark. And it's funny how you just kind of change your internal posture and work your way through stuff. And
Did you have the Crocs on?
no, I did not. I've been dead, man.
The Crocs give you away immediately, man. My man.
No. I do not dress like that if I'm going into a favela.
We went to okay, so we have the incredible pleasure and gift of working with Fear of God, but more importantly, just being friends with the boys over there. And we go to get like fitted up for an Easter suit and get some Easter clothes. And you know what? This is year 3 of Dad getting fitted. I was like, you better pull some things for me. I'm getting something. I'm better put something on my body. And my man rolls up in Crocs. I mean, I looked homeless, but he rolled up in Crocs in the temple of the fear of God. My man wore Crocs. They loved it. They thought it was amazing. But you're wild.
But no, but I want to say that it was one of those situations where you couldn't pin anything, you couldn't get a map, you couldn't get outside help, and it's really interesting. I had to go back into my own instincts. I have a very natural internal compass. I don't know what it is, but I can be in the middle of nowhere and somehow find my way back. And it took me several miles to find a way across a highway. That was the challenging because it was banking a highway system where you just could not get to the more developed side of the city. And I finally found a way over a bridge and under a tunnel, and instinctively, without any technology, I found my way back. And I thought, I wonder how many of us have become so dependent on outside mechanisms that we've lost our natural instincts, like our survival instincts and our entrepreneurial instincts, our leadership instincts. Because when things get easier, you lose that talent, you lose that capacity. And if you could just shift this almost completely, you go through elementary school, through high school, you go to college, maybe you go on and get a postgraduate degree, and then you immediately get a job where the job is already established and you get a paycheck. You're actually developing on external mechanisms to create your own wealth. And I actually think a lot of people have instinctive entrepreneurial capacities that are just never developed because they always have ways. They always have Google search, or they always have this external mechanism where they don't have to struggle through. Let me tell you, I was exhausted. There were certain points where I just wanted to sit down and go, I just had to quit right here. I'm just so tired. And I found this little store and I went and got some drink. I almost never buy sugar, but I bought a drink with sugar in it just to give myself energy to walk the next 2 or 3 miles. And
you bought a Diet Coke, my man. A Diet Coke.
No, I didn't. I bought like Gatorade,
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's my thing. I used to get worried about you being lost. You've lived a long life. Now I don't care. It's up to you. You decide to go. You never come back. It's fine. I love you. I love you. I know what the accounts. I have your Instagram. We're good. We're taken care of. There. I love you. I've spent my time with you. But I do think there is something to be told about getting lost and like experiencing new things. And we've talked about that a lot here on the pod. But I do think when people talk about being in a creative rut, or people talk about being stagnant in their leadership, and I often wonder, like, do you go outside and get lost? Do you go and do you take a new route home? Do you make yourself figure out where you are? Like I pride myself on, there's almost nowhere in Los Angeles that I don't know. I've been there. I have driven the streets. I can figure out how to get in and out and around. I know where to go or not to go. But that's taken my whole life, So it's like know the surroundings, but also, explore new things. Get out there, see the world, get lost, ends up in a favela.
Not just say, I do think it's crazy. We know people who have lived in LA all their lives and don't know how to get to the airport.
Oh, we
you
do.
know,
And I know his name.
and I know several, and I've never figured that out. And when we used to live in Whittier, which is just on the outside of LA City, which is still a part of LA County, almost every kid that you went to school with, I was shocked, had never been to LA, which is 15 minutes down the street. It was like it's a different
No,
world.
no, 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 no. No, no. LA was not 15 minutes away, Dad. I'm sorry. We lived, it was LA County, yes, but we were 30 minutes out. We were 15 minutes from the
Okay,
freeway.
30 minutes out. That's
But
not the point. 30 minutes away, you got
no, but
Los Angeles.
that's an interesting thing about LA, right? Because you can live in Pasadena, which is something similar. That's really only 15 minutes away from downtown. But if you don't really leave your city, you don't experience like the fullness of greater LA, greater Los Angeles. And a lot of people in those two places don't.
Yeah. I just think it's about growing and expanding and um, pushing the boundaries of your own capacity and your own experience and your own knowledge and always growing. And I think by the way, that's one of the reasons I love this podcast is that we're always just pushing the boundaries and, going beyond where we're comfortable, going where we're searching. We don't know. We don't have a map. We're just feeling our way through. But we know that this is an important place to explore and to pioneer.
So I want to bring up March Madness. We're obviously big fans of basketball. I'm disillusioned, and I low key hate our home team in the NBA, which is the Clippers. I think I think I think we've broken up. Open to if they win a chip, they can win me back. But I am a fan. I reserve my right as a fan to hate them because I've been in it with them for 20 years. So I'm allowed to hate them. Um, and that's okay. But here we were watching March Madness this weekend, and on Sunday it was Easter, obviously, and it was a beautiful day, an amazing day. And we got home in between the morning and the night gatherings. And I turned on March Madness and I FaceTimed you because this big man named DJ Burns Jr. at NC State was tearing apart Duke University. If you know anything about Duke University, their mascot is the Blue Devils. It's so interesting that on the day of Easter, our boys up at NC State had our back and took out the devil. Those little privileged little Blue Devils over there. We're not going to mention that UNC lost in the round before in front of our very eyes in Los Angeles. But it was such an
Yes,
interesting.
and we lost to NC State in the championship of the ACC title, and NC State beat us. So they're on what, a 9-10 game winning streak. It's incredible.
It's incredible. So, anyways, I'm watching this game. We call each other. We're gloating. We're living in this like great feeling that Duke's probably going to lose. And then I was watching the interview, the post game interview with DJ Burns Jr. And he talked about the female reporter asked him, you play with so much joy. What brings that? And he says, I've always said that the moment I don't enjoy playing basketball is the day I quit. I'm having fun out here. Let's keep having fun. And then she asked him a follow up, and his answer was so unique and so interesting, Dad. I ended up filming the little clip on my phone and my TV, and you can't hear anything. And he talked about she asked him like what led to this moment for NC State because they're a lower team. I think they're 11. Are they an 11
Yeah, 11th seed. Yeah.
And DJ Burns talks about a total switch in our commitment. He says the reason for the success is a total switch in our commitment. No one's late to things or being a problem in and out of the locker room. Everyone is coming together. And I thought it was such an interesting and such like a wise perspective on the situation. One, I thought it was cool that she identifies the joy that he plays with. He wasn't playing with anger. He's not slamming the ball and then getting angry and having this false sense of bravado and intensity. He was making these incredibly agile moves. It's like he's got to be 265. He's a big boy. And then dropping these dimes into the hoop. And he's playing with joy. He's smiling. He's laughing. He's dabbing up the guys on the team. You could tell he was such an internal inspiration and motivator for the rest of his team at NC State. So it's cool that he identified joy and he identified this switch in commitment. and that character inside the locker room affected, or character outside the locker room affected the way they're playing inside the locker room and the way that they're banding together. So, Dad, I thought it would be interesting to talk about that and kind of break that down. What are your initial thoughts?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to keep perspective. When you're an 11th seed, it doesn't mean there are 10 teams better than you. It means there are 40 teams better than you because there's 4 different regions. So they chose 40 teams that the experts determined were better than you. So for them to be in the final 4 is pretty much a phenomenon and pretty extraordinary. And then when he lists why his team is doing so well, I thought this was very interesting because he's actually talking about basic structures of success. When he says we don't show up late and we don't cause any drama, in the locker room, basically, right? What he's actually saying is there were some basic structural characteristics that we lacked, which is probably why other teams didn't recognize the extreme level of talent that they had. And I think this is such an important realization that there are a lot of people who have extraordinary talent, but they don't have the internal structures for success to match that talent. And what he's actually saying is we did some things that were so basic that you wouldn't even think they're important. Like we started showing up on time, which means they established an internal discipline. And, that's not brain surgery. That's not magic. We just started showing up on time. And that showing up on time was the tipping point for team discipline, for personal responsibility. We took responsibility to show up. And then we stopped having drama. This is, again, if there are 3 characteristics for high level success, the third one is impulse control. And if and those who evaluate optimal performance and optimal success and optimal living, they say that emotional regulation is the number one factor in a person's life for personal happiness and personal success. So what he's actually saying is we stopped having drama is that they were a bunch of kids who did not have personal discipline and did not have emotional regulation. That's why you have drama on and off the court, because you don't have emotional regulation. It's not because things get easier. It's not because you're not getting tempted. It's not because you're not getting agitated. It's because for the first time in your life, someone taught you that if you can regulate your emotions and have mastery there, and if you can take on personal discipline and responsibility, have mastery there, you suddenly destroy the ceiling that your talent has been limited by. And that's why NC State is one of the final 4 teams rather than the 40 also-rans.
I do think it's interesting, right? Because we also watched a really kind of heartbreaking interview with with Ryan and RJ Davis on UNC, North Carolina, and we got the privilege of going to that game last Thursday, and it felt like it was a gift, but really it was just God wanting to break our hearts in front of us, and and it was so crazy because
you have such a great view of God, Aaron.
all I do is put all of my own characteristics on God, and so he's very petty. He's very petty, and he's very how selfish is that? Right. We're watching this interview with RJ Davis and Ryan, and then is it Baycott, who's the center, and they were really going at RJ Davis, right? The reporters were really asking him these kind of, how did it feel to not really play, like show up in the moment, and all these things. I watched the game. I'm the biggest critic of our own teams. He played wonderfully. Maybe he didn't take over early enough, maybe, but he played wonderfully. There were some mistakes made, but it is what it is, and he's the leader of that team. And I thought it was so remarkable. I mean, one, he had such a hard time answering it because I think he's such a humble, kind guy, and you really saw his leadership there. But you watched Ryan, who's a transfer from Notre Dame, come in, and he takes the question over and says, you know what, I would like to speak on this, and just speaks to the character of the other 2 players and speaks to the commitment and the drive and the leadership the other 2 players have provided, talks about the culture of the team and the things that they established. And I find it interesting, right? Because it's so important to know the culture. It's so important. And Dad, this is some things I want to ask you, right? Is what's the difference between knowing the why and knowing what the culture is? Because how important is it to know the why and to know the culture? And is there a distinction? Because I think that, obviously they're on a mission. They want to win the championship. So that's the winning is maybe the why, or the winning is the how they accomplish this. But you can tell that there's a culture, because the moment that someone even breached, uh, speaking about one of their people negatively, he immediately took it over and said, "You know what? Let me actually stand in the space in between." Right? And great culture creates a lot of space for multiple people to represent that culture, right? And that's and in every team, whether it's church, whether it's an organization, whether it's a business, whether it's, your personal life, like when you have a culture with your friends, when you have a culture in your marriage, when you have a culture in your organization or your church or your business, things are established. So how do you set up a healthy culture in that way? Like we're looking at great young men become the product of great cultures, but they obviously were a part of bringing that culture. So what are a few things that you think brings a great culture?
That's a great question. And I just want to go back to Ryan and say that that is what you call a culture guy. Either the Spurs or the Warriors need to pick up Ryan. Because not only can that guy hit threes and he hustles on defense, but he makes his team better. He just has a level of leadership acumen that is extraordinary. I love the way he defended his players. I love the way he defended R.J. Davis and Beckoff. I love the way he talked about we wouldn't even be here. Carolina wouldn't even be here. R.J. Davis, one of the greatest players in Carolina history. And you saw the culture there. I guess, Aaron, what I would say is the why is in a sense the vision, the purpose or the intention that you're fighting for. But I think culture, and I don't want to diminish it, but culture has a lot to do with the how. In that, let's say you have two teams that have the same why. We're going to win the national championship. But one team, their culture is we're dirty, we cheat, we foul until the referees stop us. We go over the line until they push us back across the line. And then you have another team that says we play clean, we have integrity, we never diminish the other team, we don't talk smack, we stay disciplined, we don't focus on them, we focus on us and what we do. And so how you achieve that why has a lot to do with the culture. And because the how has to do with not just with technique, but with ethics. It's not the technique of the how; it's the ethics of the how. It's the question of does the ends justify the means? When you say yes, you only have a why, and you don't have an ethic, an ethos, a culture. I think a lot of times the vision and the culture don't match. And so you have a coach that wants to win everything, but he doesn't care about the culture. So he just burns the players. And I will say, and I know this is controversial, but I think one of the reasons some teams have been able to be preeminently the great sports teams is that when you're churning through players 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, you can win a championship without worrying about the culture. You just use players. But if you're going to build something that's transcendent, that transcends time, you have to really focus on the culture. And I'm not a massive Nick Saban fan, but you can't argue that he built a leadership excellence culture there. And the culture tells you whether you belong or not. You don't tell the team whether you belong or not. The culture tells you whether you belong. Dabo Swinney created a very different culture. Dean Smith in Carolina and Roy Williams and Coach K, they create a culture, and then whether you match that culture or not. And then sometimes talent gets you to Duke, but you don't match the culture, so you're out in a year. And I think that's the reality is that what a culture does, it does more than tell you how to act. It tells you in a sense who belongs there. If you're not disciplined, if you're not committed to personal accountability, if you don't treat people with respect, you won't belong in some cultures, no matter how talented you are. And I think the great coaches like Coach Pop, Steve Kerr, Whether you like him or not, Belichick created a very specific culture. And Tom Brady, as extraordinary as he has been as an athlete, that culture fit his ethical system. He believed in team first. If anyone could have said, no, me first, not team first, it was Tom Brady. He's the GOAT. But he actually believed in that culture and believed in sacrificing for the whole. And so what you have to find is players who match a culture and cultures who match a player.
I love it. We don't have much time, so this is a shorter episode. I'm going to ask you one or two more questions. So can you give us like 2-minute responses and then we'll go
quick
back?
Answers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So when building two things when building a culture. So first question is this: if you're part of a culture that feels like maybe it needs turning around, one, what is it like? What are the signs that you're in a culture that maybe needs some fixing? And then two, how do you turn around a culture that needs fixing? If you're at the helm, how do you turn it around?
Well, one thing I think you look for is the danger of groupthink. When a culture is operating a certain way and it violates your conscience, you should pay attention to that, because what you'll be in danger of is becoming a part of groupthink, where since everyone else accepts it, you start accepting it, and before you know it, 6 months, a year later, you don't even question anymore, when at first it really violated your conscience. And so I think it's really important to ask the why of the how. Like going, hey, I noticed we do this. Could you help me understand the why behind it? It doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't feel even right to me. But if I could understand the why, maybe I can then I could get on the same page. And so if you find something that violates your conscience, or you feel like it's just culturally unhealthy, you should actually then go back and ask the question of the why. Why do we do it this way?
Yeah. I also think
why is not an offensive question.
Yeah, I do notice, like I sat in on a team meeting of a team that I'm not a part of, I'm newly a part of. At Mosaic, I'm helping. I told them, I said, give me the team that needs the most love or needs more people, and I want to help. And one of the things that I do find is like, it's the questions people ask, right? It's when people are asking what questions versus why questions, you can really see the difference. What do I do? Or and maybe a better example of this is I feel like sometimes we'll answer the what, we won't actually give the why. Right? This is what we do. This is how we do it. I find it so much easier, and you get how and what when you just explain the why. This is why we do this, and the product is the what and the how. We do this so
And
people
this is why we do it this way.
Yes. And if the why is the roadmap to healthy culture, the why is the roadmap to great culture.
Absolutely.
Here's a question I have, right? Because so much of this season of life has been maybe a revolt against like hustle culture and working hard, and you hear these rumors that we're going to move into a 4-day week, which I'm fine with a 4-day week, because I feel like you can get to 80 hours in 4 days. You know what I mean? I'd prefer. I like binge working on 4 days and then having 3 days where we get to hang. But so I'm all for things like that. But in a state of the world where it feels like working hard is maybe seen as deemed as capitalistic and evil, how do you navigate that kind of culture? Because it's really easy to get jumped on in this season of life, the cultural dynamics, social dynamics.
Yeah, I think it's very simple. If you have a job you hate, figure out how to work 4 days.
Okay.
And if you have a job you love, you're going to want to do it all the time anyway. And so there's some sense where I'm less worried about how many hours a week we work, as opposed to finding a job we actually love, something we love to do. And, and there's certain things, when we were shooting film, like we were working 16-hour days. And we loved it. I do not like waking up at 4 a.m, but when we were shooting, I was willing to do that, and so when you do things you love, the time becomes more incidental. When you're doing a job so you can pay the bills and make sure you have a roof over your head, make sure you have food on the table, then it's like optimize that, figure out how to work 4 days a week and make the same money.
Amazing. Well, guys, thank you so much for this episode. We have to jump on an arena call now. But for everybody who's listening each and every week, we really appreciate you guys. Thank you for rating, reviewing this on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to podcasts. And thank you guys for hitting the subscribe button on the YouTube. And go check out our new website, thearenasummit.com. And we're rolling out new things this month. So we'll see you guys very soon.
Pura vida. Take care. Have a great week.